Did that work? It looks like it worked. I was able to, I clicked some settings before I did this. Okay, let's see here. So, wait for y'all to join. Okay, y'all there? Did I just undo my own work? For those of you who joined, it looks like I did 1080p. So if let me see here, present from my desktop, share my screen, entire screen. When I created the stream, it says broadcast quality full 1080p. So can someone confirm that they're able to see in 1080p my ugly visage and my screen? Let's see here. Who knows? Waiting for chat to pop off. Come on. Is it just loading for people? I don't even know. Just let me know if it looks better to you. I don't know. I hope it does. Yeah, I was able to, like I said, hi, good morning again. Or hi, good morning. For those of you who are just joining right now, I literally just streamed for like a minute. Hi. Hey, Habib, are you in Turkey by chance? Hey, y'all, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to, it's a good reminder. We should all be donating like to Turkey. I hope you and yours are okay, Habib. I've been watching with, pain in my heart of the situation there. So let's see. Hi, Johannes. Let's see. So here, there's how to donate to Turkey and Syria earthquake disaster response. Just Google. Just find any any useful like website that you trust that and just Google like how to donate to Turkey and Syria. I donated to the International Rescue IRC, I think International Rescue Committee, but there's lots, right? So the Council on Foundations, Charity Watch has one, right? Charity Watch, Charity Navigator, that's a good list, right? Navigator, Turkey. Yeah, if you don't know who to donate to, worst case, you can donate to Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières. Just an absolute nightmare, my friends. Those people need our help. Okay, so yeah, let's move on. So I started this broadcast with 1080p. Oh, good. Okay, thank you for confirming, Ahmed. I appreciate it. Finally, it's like when I went live, I made sure to set my camera and the whatever. There's some other setting in the video there, and it even prompted me, even said ready to go live, and it showed me this, and I took a screenshot so you could see it says full 1080p, full high definition 1080p. So okay, great, moving on. Yesterday I was coding with y'all, and what did we do? We wrote this code here. Can you all see that font? It's 1080p. Not able to pass your reader resource, not able to pass my resource to on skip reader. Well, okay, I'm not sure about that. So yesterday when we were coding, we got this far, right? I mean, let's just recap for those of you who are joining. Spring Batch is a thing you can use to do batch sequential data access, large amounts of data access, and that's especially useful where there is a possibility that the data might, the processing might be too large for a single transaction, and obviously that's kind of a wishy-washy heuristic. There's a lot of things you could think about that apply there, but basically, if imagine you're dealing with a million rows. That's not a single transaction, right? That's usefully for most databases, maybe 1,000 records at a time, right? If you want to do it 1,000 times, 1,000 transactions, or maybe 10,000 records at a time. Either way, 1,000,000 is just asking for trouble, right? It's an incredible strain on all the infrastructure involved in that work. And 1,000,000 isn't even that much data, right? So you want to stream through the data. You want to work through it in chunks. And so we talk about batch processing. We talk about chunk-oriented processing, right? And so in a batch job, let's start from the beginning here. In a batch job, you've got, in a Spring Batch job, you have a job, which is a bean, and job can be run, one or more times. By default, if you're using Spring Boot and you define a bean of type job, and you don't configure anything in the properties, then it'll just run any jobs that are found in the Spring Bean context, in the Spring Bean factory, in the Spring application context. So I've got one job. It has a step. So let's see the definitions for that stuff. Let's see here. There. I have a job that has a step. In this case, my step is just trivial. It's just a hello world, because we didn't have a lot of time to really sort of expand upon this stuff yesterday, right? And so it has a single step. It has a tasklet, and that tasklet just prints out hello world. Now, like I said, by default, Spring Boot, when you start the Java application, it runs all the jobs. Maybe that's not what you want, right? Maybe you have a long-lived web application that just processes data, right? Whenever data comes in, you kick off a batch job. And in that case, you want to kick off a job whenever you need to, as opposed to when the Spring Boot application starts up. So you can manually kick off jobs by, first of all, disabling the Spring Batch job enabled property. Hi, Thomas. Good to see you. Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening. It's almost afternoon here. It's 10:40 a.m. my time. So you can disable it by saying batch job enabled equals false, and then you inject the job launcher and a pointer to the job. In this case, I've only got one job, this one up here. You can inject a pointer to that, and then you can launch it. You say job launcher.run, passing the job, and here's the job parameters. You can then interrogate the result of that, the job execution, to get the job instance, get the job instance ID, and that all corresponds to state in your database table. So let's see, Docker compose up. And by the way, friends, git config. I'm storing this on my coffee software show, GitHub. It's called Let's Code Spring Batch. So all the code we make it through here will just be there. It just has a tasklet right now, just because that's what I'm starting with, right? Just as a simple demo for Hello World. And so, yeah, it's a step, and the step in turn has a tasklet, but that's not the most common use case, right? In skip listener, when I'm using Harish, I'm sorry, but I can't debug code without, first of all, seeing it all, and second of all, in comments. Maybe you could send me a Stack Overflow with a link, and I could take a look at it, or send it to somebody who knows. Send me a message on Twitter, yeah, at StarbucksMan. And then I can send me a link on Twitter to a Stack Overflow, and then as usual, I'll take a look at it, or worst case, I'll ask somebody smarter, and they can help me look at it. Okay, so okay, you got a job, got a step. Now, when I ran this code yesterday, I wanted to compile it to a native image, one other thing. Well, you can run the job multiple times, right? So you can have the same job that you run multiple times. This is different than most Spring Bean use cases, right? In a Spring application, you have beans that are of singleton scope. They only get created one time. Can I increase? Yeah, of course. How's that? I hope that's better. I made the fonts bigger. Does that work? Okay, well, anyway, so you can run the job multiple times. And that begs the question, if I'm let's say I'm running a job every night at midnight that generates a report. Okay, so I'm going to run a batch job that goes through my database, does some analysis on the data, and then it's better. Okay, good. Thank you, Hashir. So then it dumps out whatever I'm doing, whatever report I want. Well, that job has parameters. It might just be as simple as the date of the report. So you can specify those parameters here as job parameters that get passed in. So I could have another parameter here called date and just new date, okay? You can even do something like, okay, well, maybe I could, add date, right? Maybe I could do something simpler where I create a date based on just the year, date, year, month, and date, right? So in that case, I would have the same parameter no matter how many times I run this. If I run it on the same day, then I'll have the same parameter, and that will stop it from rerunning multiple times, because you don't want to run the same job, especially if there's side effects, right? If there's some sort of some sort of side effect related to the processing, that way you have a key. So in this case, I have a UUID, but maybe the date is actually the key I care about, right? And so these parameters, they're different for every single run of the job. And if you need access to those parameters, then you want to make sure that Spring provides those updated parameters whenever you run a new job, okay? So all the beans that participate in a job, like our tasklet, if they need access to parameters, or if they need access to different state every single time, they need to be step scoped, okay? Why use bean and when to use components? So in Spring, you've got a bean fact. Actually, that's a good point. Let's take a quick digression, and let's just focus on some Spring stuff. I wonder if people know this stuff. So let's take a quick digression here. I've got a app context equals new generic application context, and it's going to have beans, right? It's a bean factory. It contains beans, and so the question then is, what kind of beans, right? This is, if you look at this type, actually, this is actually a context variable. It's a variable type application context, and I can use annotations to get the beans. So I can actually say, okay, well, I want to specify this package. So what package? Batch application.class.get package name, right? And so it'll find all the beans that have a marker annotation on them. That does component scanning, and then that marker annotation is at component, right? It'll also find Java configuration classes. So those Java configuration classes are annotated with @configuration, and they have methods with @bean. And so, you can use either one. You can use @component to discover classes that you can put the annotation on. You can modify the source code for the type. But if you have a bean that you can't change, right, the source code is not available to you, like a data source, then you create a provider method, a bean method that returns data source. So Spring will invoke these methods and take the return value and store it in the application context, or it'll find beans annotated with @component and all of the other annotations that are in turn meta annotated with @component, and it'll add that to the application context. The result is still an application context. So that's the core Spring machinery. When you use this right here from Spring Boot, that's just giving you an application context, right? It's just a fancy way of getting an application context. And behind the scenes, it's going to take bean configuration from the result of bean methods or from component scanning, and it'll store them in the context. And once they're in the context, they don't live. There's no real hint anymore that this is a bean method provided component or @service or @controller or whatever. Instead, they just end up as bean definitions, and those bean definitions are all normalized. So that's one of the key important things about Spring is it doesn't care how you tell it about your objects, but you have to tell it, right? So you can use component annotations to mark your source code and have Spring automatically detect that and infer the structure. You can use bean methods to have it call your factory method so that you can control how the beans are created. You can use XML. Don't do that, but you could. You could use anything. You could, if you wanted to, you could like create some sort of config file based on YAML. Definitely don't do that. You could do whatever you wanted, right? As long as you are able to contribute bean definitions, ultimately there's a way to provide programmatically bean definitions. As long as you do that, Spring doesn't care how it comes. So it supports a few ways by default, but you could do anything as long as the result is that you're adding bean definitions. Okay, so we've got these beans. we've got a job, and the job has steps, and the steps sometimes have parameters, and these parameters need to be reevaluated. So I'm injecting this job parameter using a Spring expression language expression, referencing step 1 in line 47. We inject step line 47. Line 47. Yes. Yeah. Here's step. Right. I'm injecting the step that I defined down here. It's the only. It's going to look it up both by type name and by the name of the type. Right. The name of the bean. So in this case, you're right. I should have called it step, and those will line up. Now, as we're going to see in a second, this approach of just injecting the step directly isn't really great. I don't like it a lot, and we'll talk about that in a second here, because it doesn't scale, and we'll see that in a second here. But for simple, like for this very, very simple example, this will work just fine. Okay, so I've got a step. It has one tasklet, and that's it. It does nothing useful. Now, steps are the real power of a step is not the tasklet. Tasklets are used whenever you need some sort of callback just to do something generic. Who knows what? You could just, maybe you define a JDBC template, and you have something that you need to do. Just, maybe you have to like set up the maybe you need to set up a database. You need to create some SQL or something. I don't know, whatever. Do something to change the state of the world, so that the job is in the right state before you do something. So maybe you need to like delete all or something, right? Just something that needs to get done once, and it's a very simple thing. Or maybe you need to set up a flag or write a file or whatever, right? You do that in a tasklet. You can do other things in tasklets, right? Dave, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Ahmed, I got rid of UID because I've got a date now, so the effect is still the same, right? Oh yeah, now I see what you're saying, buddy. You're trying to tell me that I need to have the Ahmed, you're right. You're right, buddy. Yep, you're. It's good that one of us had their coffee or tea today because I'm clearly missing obvious stuff. Thank you. Okay, so I've got a date. Now this is the reason I'm adding these parameters is because if I don't have these parameters, it'll if I don't have these parameters, the job will, it'll be completed. It'll run once and then it'll never run again because Spring Batch will look in the metadata tables, and I have those tables started. So pg password equals psql equals postgres psql u postgres h localhost postgres. Okay, so I'm logged into my SQL database here, and you can see it says select all from batch job instance. There you go. So I've got these jobs, and these jobs are keyed by the parameter. So batch job execution param, right? And it says UUID. If those values are not unique, then they conflict. Then it won't run the job again, right? It's keeping track of the state there. So I need to have unique parameters here, and again, you can use that to your advantage. You can say, okay, well, maybe my date is actually a string, right? And what I do is I calculate today, right? New date, whatever, and then you should obviously use a date format, but you can imagine doing something like this, right? All right, today.get month. Don't do this. This is old code that won't work in the future, but get year, right? Something like that. You can imagine doing that, and now you've got a date that is tied to just today. Yeah. So var key equals this, something like that, and then you could pass that in. So here's my key, and as long as I'm running the same job, I can't run the same job more than once per day, right? And that's the use of those parameters, is having control over that. Okay, so for now, since I want to run this job multiple times, since we're just developing stuff, I'll just make it so that it's not actually unique. It just changes for every single run. So let's try that out. And the date is date, right? So we'll see if I run this job, what happens. Okay. Ooh, it is unhappy as can be. Interesting. Oh, I see. Oh, my schema. So right. So okay. Let's run this again. Just make sure it works. Script must not be empty. Okay. So create table no op ID serial primary key. Okay. There you go. So it ran, and I got the instance ID, and not a big deal. But it printed out the hello world. The date is blah blah blah. Okay. So we have a very simple batch application using a tasklet. This isn't really that interesting though, right? Where Spring Batch really comes into its own is when you start dealing with data, right? And here I'm just whatever. I could have just printed. I could have just thrown out Spring Batch in this case and just had a bean that just like an event listener that listens for application ready event and just prints out hello world. Clearly, this is a waste of Spring Batch, right? Spring Batch is a little overkill just to do hello world. So let's talk about real data. This is where I think things get a little bit more fun is when you start worrying about reading and writing, right? And that's where the steps can be a lot more useful. So the first thing I want to do is I want to ingest some data. And so I had a little chance to, I had some time. And I love coffee. I love coffee. So I was looking for data on coffee, right? And so I was just, there's a Google data set search, right? That you can look for. Like I just looked for the word coffee because I was like, I want to have something to play with. So there's some interesting data here, like daily coffee prices, right? What does this look like? If you go here, and then it shows you forecasting daily coffee prices, coffee brewed, blah, 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 coffee. And so it shows you the prices of coffee. Now, it doesn't tell me where. That's the one thing. I don't know to whom or for whom this data is, but it gives me, and it says forecasting. What do you mean? I don't want a historical data set that forecasts. I want something that reports. So this one is kind of suspect, but it does have the benefit of being very conveniently, easy to understand. You've got here, I can download it, right? Coffee.csv. Come on. Where is it? Download. Sign in with Google. Do it. Come on. Okay, so here's the data. Open that up. CD downloads. So cat coffee.csv. Less. So you can see it's date open. Is that like a commodity price? I don't know what the data is actually. The high, the low, the close, the volume. Volume of what? Sales? Sales of coffee? How do they even know that? That doesn't seem to. I don't know. It seems a little weird, but it goes back to 2000, right? Which is kind of cool. So that's one set of data set, maybe. What else can we look at that would give us something kind of interesting to analyze and to tease apart, right? So we go back here, data sets. What's some other cool data? I was looking for coffee, but indicators from the International Coffee Organization data set, most funded. Let's see here. Time series analysis, maybe. Let's see. I saw one with video games. Video game sales. So this gives you the rank of the sales, the name, the platform, the year, the publisher. Let me see what that looks like. I don't even know what it gives you. It's really kind of cool that people have these like data sets out there, right? That you can just look at. Here we go. So this is video game sales. Less. So that rank, the name, the platform, the year, the genre of the game, Does it give you a year? Wait, does it? It does give you a year. Yeah. Wait, is that just? It's gonna be a very small game, right? Small data set. Oh, wait, what's going on? What does this give you exactly? 2005. Let me see if I can grep 2005 and see if we have the same year multiple times. Oh, we do. So wait, how many 2005s do we have? 989. Okay. So what does it purport to give you then? It gives you it gives you a list of the video games with sales greater than 100,000 copies broken down by year and geography, right? So that's kind of interesting, isn't it? What could we do with that? Could we do anything interesting? Is there any kind of insight to be drawn from that? I guess we could like do a report where we break down which video game console sold the most on a given year. That is to say, which platform had the games that sold the most per year, or something like that. So we could say, okay, well, probably in 1995, Nintendo was number one, but today maybe it's Sony or something. I don't know. Maybe it's still Nintendo. I have no idea, right? That's kind of interesting. Now, what I want is also I want something that'll take a little time. Well, this won't take any time to process. It's only 16,500 records. Is that right? So cat VB sales WC minus L 16,599. So 16.6 thousand records. Okay, so that's nothing. That's like a breath, a small inhalation for your average SQL database and for average Spring Batch job. But it's fine. It'll give us something we can do, and it'll allow us to demonstrate multiple stages. And then later, I want to do something that takes a little time artificially. We'll find something. Maybe I can generate an image that summarizes the results for each year or something, and that might require some processing. And we'll look at that using remote chunking or remote partitioning. We'll talk about that later. That's the goal, is to get to that step where we have this thing that requires a little bit of work, right? So the question is, could we busy our computers enough with this job? If we're only generating data, let's see. So what is the field on the left? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So the fourth column is the year. So cut minus 4. B is a comma. Yeah, okay. So then unique. And then how many years do we have? Wait, what? No, that's not right. That gives us years. PC versions, my champion. Oh, so we've got some issues there, right? The data is invalid. Okay. Well, or maybe it isn't invalid, but I don't even know. Like, where's this? We have to make sure that when we parse it, okay, there's quotes. Okay, so this is going to be, if I use a quote-aware parser, then it should be fine. But that's the first thing, is we need to get this data into our database in a clean way. And here, Spring Batch, again, can help us, right? But still, how many years do we have? It looks like 1995. I just saw 1995, I think. Yeah, 1995. So it goes back a little bit, 20, 30 years almost. Obviously, PlayStation and Xbox didn't exist at that time. Oh yeah, sword. I can do a sword, that's for sure. Sword 10. Good. So then dedupe that. There you go. So whatever. So what do we say here? We got 1980 down to 2020. Okay, yeah, solid 40 years. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So I wonder what other wait, does it have other platforms besides the? Well, I guess we'll find out. We should just like ingest it and find out. Okay. Okay, so the first thing, I guess this is fun. How about that? You want to do video game sales? Let's just do some video game sales. That sounds like a fun scenario. Okay, so desktop batch, RMRF data, dear data, copy, download, VG sales to data. Now, I'm a little worried. What is the license? License is unknown. Data is incorrect. Makeup Artist was released in 2009, not 2020. Okay, I don't care. Let's see here. It is based on 2 records were dropped due to incomplete. The script to scrape the data is here. Maybe this thing has a license? License. GPL. So wait, if I use that code, my code is GPL'd. But I'm not going to use the code. I'm just going to use the data. Whatever. My code is Apache 2 licensed. It's open source. You can get it on GitHub, but or at least it should be, isn't it? GitHub, Coffee Software Show, repositories. Let's code Spring Batch. It's private. What fiend? Let's make this public before I do anything stupid. Change to public. Oh, they don't make you type it in anymore. You used to have to like type in, hey, I want to make it public. I want to make this public. I have read and I consent and I understand. Wow, look at that. That's 3 different, like, are you sure screens. That was great. Okay, make it public for pizza. Oh, there's 4. Now I got to do like the multi-factor thing too as well. So, okay, so GitHub. I'm going to my phone here. Okay, and 12. All righty. I am sure, I'm 100% sure that I wanted to do that. It asked me 4 different ways to confirm my intent there. It used to be actually easier. I can't believe it. It used to be you had to like type in, hey, I want to make it public. Okay, so let's do this. Let's put that in there. So CD data. Oh wait, actually, we can actually just modify the README here, I suppose. Notes on data. Notes on things to look into, or just to do. Took this data from here. This one. Okay, good. So git status, git add data, git commit data for the win. Yeah, if you accidentally trip and fall and still make your code public, despite all those obstacles, yeah, your luck is weird. You should try the lottery. Okay, let's see here. So now I've got this data here in my folder, and we want to read that data in. Do you mean bean and component annotations? Because a component is a bean. We use a bean to declare a bean in a configuration or infrastructure class. You're right. Yeah, you're right. Beans are they are attached to provider methods. You know, they're a function that or a method that returns a bean, whereas component is a marker annotation. It's a documentational stereotype annotation. And when we say stereotype, we don't mean in terms of like the bad kind of like making assumptions about people. Instead, we mean stereotypical as in the UML sense, right? Documentational, UML stereotype, right? So UML stereotypes. In UML models, a stereotype is a model element that identifies the purpose of other model elements. So when we talk about stereotype annotations, we have at service, at controller, at rest controller, etc. But they all have, so at controller, they all have at component. So at controller is an at component. And that's also kind of the point, right? Which is that you can create your own, right? So I could create my own, well, let's try it actually. I'll show you. You can go here, copy and paste this annotation, paste. I'll make it not public. Josh, coffee, software, bean, or component, right? There you go. So now, because this is annotated with at component, I could say class my listener implements application listener application ready event at coffee software component. Add this implement hello world from a custom component, right? And I can rerun that. And I got a bigger problem, which is, create table if not exists. Okay. Good. So hello world from a custom component. So that's that's what we mean by stereotype annotations. It's meant to make your code more clear, the intent of the code, and it's fully expected that you create your own custom stereotype annotations if you have your own custom component type, right? Which is yet another reason, by the way, why you shouldn't package things by role, right? You shouldn't have a controller's package because it's redundant. The annotation will tell you everything. Okay, so moving on. We've got to get back to this batch stuff because this is the good stuff. By the way, I'm happy to answer those questions. I'm glad that we're having these conversations. I just I want to get back to this batch stuff because it's so much fun, and I don't think people know just the possibilities. Okay, so we've got now this data here, right? Like I said, only 16,000 records. So we should probably create a database first to store this. Okay, so let's go to our schema. Okay, split write actions. Okay, and then go to the data, VG sales on the left. Okay, so we're going to create a table if not exists, video game sales. Okay, and it'll be year int now, genre text, publisher text. What is North American sales? What is that number? Oh, rank. We need rank. Rank is int. Name is var. It's text, right? Platform is text. Publisher text. Don't care about the US sales. I guess we do actually. We care about the NA sales. So what is NA sales? Sales is a float. And EU, JP. What is other sales? That's a horrible. I don't like the way that sounds. I have a life-size picture of what that refers to, and I don't like it at all. Global sales. Wait, what? Okay, this data is very suspect. But either way, yeah, I could just pick a global one, right? Or I could just sum them all together and create an index based on that, I guess. But either way, okay, we've got the first job here is just to get the data into a place where we can use it. And that's the first job, right? This is a basic ETL kind of thing. So we're going to take the data and just normalize it. We're just because we can't query CSVs. All we can do is load it into something that we can then use to query. So that's our first priority, is to get the data into that into something we can use. Okay, so to do that, we're going to create a step. Okay, so the step is not going to be a tasklet, or actually we can leave the tasklet, but that's not interesting. What we want is another step to do the reading and the writing. Okay, so bean step CSV to SQL to DB, right? I like to name them based on the input and the output. Okay, so return new step builder, have a name, and this will be CSV to DB, and then we'll inject the job repository. Okay, dot chunk. So the chunk refers to, is there any difference between a component and a service annotation. Service in the, okay, the question here, friends, is there a difference between component and the service annotation? When we create a library project and inject the bean in the implementation class, we've heard that the use of service and library packages might create issues. It should not create, as far as I know, it should not create issues. It's just a stereotype annotation. It does have some implications, but not much. Like, for example, if you're using JPA or Spring Data, Neo for J, or if you're using, or even if you're using Spring Data with JDBC, but you're using MySQL or Postgres or Oracle, it does translation, it does exception hierarchy translation. So basically, different databases throw different exceptions for different status codes and for different errors. And so Spring very helpfully tries to normalize that for you, right? So if you're using Postgres and you have if you're using MySQL and using Postgres, maybe the exception that you get when you have a conflict or something like that is different or whatever. Maybe the status code is different, whatever. And so Spring will actually do its best to normalize that. And that's one of the things you get with add service. But that's it. I mean, it's not a huge thing. You could, in theory, for most code, you could probably just use add component. But the point is using add service makes it more clear. Your intent is clear, right? So I use add service for my services. I use add component for regular objects that are sort of like low level, that don't have a clear role in the code. Like, for example, if I'm creating an event listener is just glue code. I'm hooking into one event and I'm doing something to set up something else. That's it. So it's just a component. If you don't have a particular controller, a particular stereotype in mind, use add component. Okay, so we're going to create a step. This is going to have a chunk size. So again, the chunk is how much data you can lose before you feel, bad. like for example, I'm going to process these 16,000 records, but maybe it's critical that I get as much data in the database as possible. And I would hate to get to the 16,000th record and then there's a parse error and then it's invalid. So instead I could do 100 records at a time, or something like that, or 1,000 or 10,000, whatever you can handle safely. You put that as your chunk size, okay? And I'm going to use our platform transaction manager, TXM. Okay, good. And I'm going to build a step. Let's see here. I'm going to build the step with an input, reader and a writer. Okay, so the item reader, I can, again, you can create your own here. So the item reader contract is very simple. I'm going to read data from something. Now I'm going to use one of the built-in item readers in just a second, but let's just imagine that I was just doing this myself. Okay, so I'll build in a item reader to read the data from the file. Okay, and so the contract is you return one line for every single read. You return one line, and then for every single write, you get a chunk of lines. Okay, so here you'll see I get a chunk of lines of strings. Okay, what is the problem here? Item reader, item writer. Oh, you have to specify these as well, the generic types. There you go. Okay, so that's saying that I'm going to read this data in one line at a time, and then for every 100 rows, I'll get a chunk that I can then process and I can write out to something, right? And so you can see I can add data. I can get the items in the chunk. That's the list, the 100 rows, right? And I can write it out. So system out 100 rows. Okay. So let's just try it out now. So you kind of get the contract here, right? Item reader, read one line at a time, and then for efficiency, so that you can do things in a transaction, you get 100 records at a time to write. You don't want to write one row at a time. If you have a billion rows, having to do a billion transactions would be very, very inefficient. Much better instead to do it, 100 records or 1,000 records at a time, or whatever you feel like you can do. And remember, if there's something that goes wrong, Spring Batch will roll back that one chunk right? And you can configure its policy. You can say, okay, look, if something goes wrong, just roll back that one chunk, but keep going. Or if something goes wrong anywhere, then fail the whole job, mark it as incomplete, and make it so that we have to start it again. Okay, you can configure all that, but for our purposes right now, let's just keep this as simple as possible. I'm gonna do something terrible. I am going to do. I'm gonna read the data, the whole thing by myself, which is not good, and we'll see that there's a better way. So I'm gonna inject a. Need to get a pointer to the file, okay? And the file is I can just inject it as a resource. Actually, class path. Where did what's the directory of that? Let's just copy the path, the absolute path. Here, there you go. Resource data, okay? There you go. So there's that. There's the resource. Now, obviously, file, home. There you go. So that's your data, and I want to turn that into a bunch of string lines. Okay, so I'll say file copy utils, copy to string, try var reader equals new input stream reader, data dot get input stream, and then I'll do file copy utils dot copy to string reader var string, and because we're doing something with IO exceptions, I'll make that a throw exception, and then var lines equals system dot line separator string dot split. Okay, so system out there are lines dot length rows. Okay, so we now have our strings, and my job will be to return one row at a time. Okay, so here I can actually use a built-in one called a new, what is it, a list or iterable list item reader. There you go. So I can give it a list of strings, and so I'll just turn this into arrays.asList lines. Okay, where's my line? Oh, it's up here. So var lines equals string null. Okay, and then assign that, and then like that. Okay. Good. So there's my list item reader. Let's just see if this works. It's way faster to use the file reader that Spring provides. Yeah, I'm 100%. We're going to do that in a second. It's also, what I'm doing right here is also wrong because it's not going to handle column parsing and all that stuff. So this is just, you're 100% right. We're not doing this for real, but I want to just kind of demonstrate what the contract looks like. Okay. So, well, first of all, where's my date? Job is running. The job is running here. Date value. There are 16599 rows. Okay, so it clearly, that's what you can see. The item reader got involved when I created the step. Okay. Let's see here. Reading multiple files at a time or reading one file, one job, which one better approach? I mean, I'm not sure I understand. Reading one file, one job. Are you talking about like to read a large file faster? You want to know which approach is better? I would use concurrency. I would use a thread pool, right? That kind of thing. You can do a paging sort of thing as well. So, but okay, hold on. So we've got this data. Instance ID. Where's our? It's not printing out the results though, is it? New item writer. Build. Didn't it? Oh, whoops. I didn't want that to happen. What just happened? Go back. Store default layout, please. Editor tabs. Oh, God. This happens once every year. There it is. Okay, thank God. Okay. Why isn't it printing out? item writer. I got the chunk. Do we ever get to this point? I feel like we should. That's interesting. List item writer of string. The return does not return anything, maybe? I guess, yeah. Well, I mean, it's a list item writer. I'm sure this is correct. This is not mine. So the question is, wait, when I run the job, how am I doing that? Date is a new date. Yeah, that should be unique. Okay. Oh, did I even plug in the step? I didn't plug in the step, friends. Yeah, thank you, San. Yeah, exactly. I didn't plug in the step. I spent all this time writing the code for the step, but I didn't actually integrate it into the job. So let's do that now. Step 2. Step CSV to DB. Okay. So the first step will be the tasklet. The next step will be to the DB. All right. There we go. There's our data. You can see it's reading the data. Okay. Hideous, right? This is not what I would call good code, but now you can kind of understand what's happening here, right? We're creating an item reader to read data. We're using an item writer to then write data. Now, I mentioned this before, but what I just did is the wrong way to go, okay? Well, first of all, this resource, this data here, this could be a parameter, right? So you might use a job expression. You might use a job parameter. Multiple files in your location. Yeah, thank you, Martin. Thank you, San. Thank you, Ahmed. Yeah, it's multiple files in my location. I'm not sure what you mean, my buddy. I'm not sure what reading multiple files at a time or reading one file. Which job? One job. You can run multiple jobs and they can each read a different file. You could run one job that reads one file at a time. You could run one job. You could probably even build a job that reads multiple chunks of the same file at the same time using threading, but I'm not sure what your question is, so I'm not trying to answer it. Okay, so I've got this resource, right? This could be a job parameter, right? Remember what I did up here? I injected this job parameter. If you have a different file that you need to, maybe you have a different CSV file every night or something like that, or whatever, you could create a job parameter and then inject that instead of just having this hard-coded path, right? I can actually inject a parameter for a different file name or whatever, you know. But in my case, it's just fine. I've just got this one file that I need to read in. So let's just leave it like that. Let's reconfigure this to do the right thing, okay? Here I kind of cheated. I used a built-in list item reader, but really I want to do something a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to use a flat file item reader. And it's going to read in a list of video game sales, I guess. So we create a video game sale, I guess. I don't know what this data looks like yet. So video game sale. Or what do we want to call a single row of this data? So it's rank, you know, we got a rank, we got a name, a platform, a year, the sales amount. I don't know, whatever. A video game record? I don't know, whatever. No. You know what? Maybe it's better just to think about it in terms of a map and string right now. No, I don't even that doesn't work. I want something that is typed, don't I? So whatever, we're going to call this CSV row. I don't know. No. CSV row. I don't like that much at all, but whatever. Let's get it done. So var ir equals new flat file item reader, CSV row. And you can also, there's a builder you can use, right? That's actually really convenient. So dot build and the resource, I'm going to pass that in here. The resource is the thing that we're going to read in, the Spring resource abstraction. And then the next thing we need is how are we going to parse the data? So the delimited data has a delimiter of comma, and what are the names of the fields? Okay, so names, we've got, we can name them whatever we want, but let's just use this list here to start that work. So split, and then okay, make it lowercase, name, platform, year, genre, publisher, NA sales, EU, actually let's just call it NA, EU, JP, other, global. Okay, so these become fields. All of these become fields in my record here. So int rank, string name, string platform, int year, string genre, string publisher, int NA. It was float, wasn't it? It was a EU sales. Yeah, those look like floats. So let's just call those floats. Okay, there you go. Okay, good. I don't know if this thing will parse records correctly. Actually, that's another thing we're going to try out today. I haven't done this in a while. I wonder if this is going to correctly give us a record instead of a Java bean. Like I can use lumbuck, right? I could use add data and create a class and all that stuff with getters and setters. But who knows if it'll correctly do that? There's a way to do it. We can take a little more control over the process and then do the mapping ourselves. And then you know what? Maybe that's actually a better idea. Maybe we can learn more in that work. Okay, so we've got the names of the fields. Then we need a mapper, right? A field set mapper or a line mapper. So the field set mapper is, maybe that's what we want to do. Let's try. So we could do a bean mapped, right? Mapped, what is it? Bean mapper, something. You could do that. You can have it automatically create the bean for you. Ignore the first line. Oh yeah, thank you. Field set line, lines to skip 1. Good point. We want to ignore that first record. And then we want, what else do we want to do? We want to do a bean mapper strict. It's some sort of mapper. I think it's field set mapper. Let's just try field set mapper. This will give us like a map of the fields. And we can programmatically extract each field like a result set and create a CSV row. So new CSV row. And then, so let's see, field set dot get values. Field set dot get a read. There you go. Read int. That's the first one, right? And then field set dot read string. That's the second one. Field set read string 2. That's the platform. Field set read string read int, right? Int. That's the third one, or I mean fourth one, I suppose. And then what else do we need here? Where am I? This is going to be a genre. That's a string. So read string 4. 5 is a read string. Float is 6. 7, 8, 9, 10. Does that look right? The reason we don't use Jackson to read the file and parse it as a POJO is because by default Jackson reads everything in memory, and also this is not. Does Jackson support CSV data? Maybe it does. I don't even know. Jackson CSV. Oh yeah, cool. It does. Yeah. So I think there's a streaming API for Jackson, but the point is, why would I use Jackson if I've already got Spring Batch? That's one of the things it does very well. Okay, so there's my field set mapper. Let's see if this works. Who knows? We're still going to keep this. I'm still going to write out the record. So, but in this case, the data I'm getting is from this writer here. So I'm going to inject my file item writer. Okay, and put that in there to bean CSV flat file item writer reader rather, and it's expecting to return CSV rows, and I'll write out CSV rows. So this is now CSV row, item writer, CSV row. Okay, but basically the same construct as before, just a little cleaner. See what happens if we run this. Define, oh, right, okay, so this file here, at value, copy this file again. File, home, okay, resource. Okay. That's true. I'm not sure. Okay, let's try it out. You know, I don't know if it's gonna be able to. I don't know. Let's see. A name is required when set state of state. Okay, dot name, CSV. You know, dot file item reader. Okay. No field set mapper implementation provided. I think the idea is that you can use. So notice that it says read int, and then it has an index or a name, and the idea is I can use the names there to do that. So maybe I should have done that. So, but let's just see if this works. There you go. Input resource must exist. Value, file, home. Oh, whoops. Okay. Unparsable number. Oh, right. Where is that? So that's read int. Read int. So int from string text. If text does not equal null and text contains, and if it doesn't contain that, return integer.parse int text. Also return 0. I don't know. I mean, what are we supposed to put there, huh? Private static parse int text. Okay, so in this case, I'll say, which line did we say it was? Here, or here, here. No, where did we put it? I forgot which line it failed on. Let's run this again. Okay. Unparsable number. Number 3. So parse int. Good. And then read string. Okay. Sorry. Okay, I'm back. So let me see. For input string. 1 second, friends. Where did that? Okay, I'm back. Let's see here. So we have an input number not applicable. This line here is saying parse int for input string. Oh, okay, wrong text. Okay. Hey, look at that. It worked. Can't believe it. Okay. Well, so we've got our data now, right? And it's reading data one line at a time and parsing it for us, right? So yeah, you're right. Now I've got these names. I should be able to do read string, and then or not right. What did I have before? I had read int. I should be able to use the string name, right? So let's just try that. Whoops. Unparsable number. We sport. Rank. Yeah. There you go. So I've got the fields now by their name. So the second field is name. The third one is platform. Fourth one is year, genre, publisher, NA, EU, AP, other, and global. Let's try that. Looks like it's still working. Okay, so you see how convenient that is? I was able to read that CSV data in, and I did so with some relative type safety. This is one of my favorite things about Spring Batch is it just makes it easy to safely get that data in. But I'm not doing anything particularly useful with it, right? Right now I'm just reading the data and then printing it out. Actually, what is this size? Okay, so let's run that, and you can see it says I got 100, and then finally at the very end, because of it, it's not quite a round number. We got 98 records. Okay, so we'll get at most 100, but we might get less. Okay, but now I want to write this out to something. I want to actually write it to my Postgres database, and this gets us to our question of schema. Okay, so here I wouldn't mind having this just in the schema. What did I do here? Let me see. Well, yeah, we can leave it like that, I guess. Rank. Okay. So I think we need to write it to the database. So the question then is, how do we do that? We create another item, another bean, this time of type item writer. It'll be a data source item, or sorry, JDBC item, batch item writer, CSV row, batch item writer, new JDBC, JDBC, yeah, batch item writer of type CSV row, and set the SQL. And here we need a SQL statement, and we're going to do an upsert, right, as usual. So I'll come back to that in a second. SQL, we need a pointer to the data source, so data source. SQL builder, SQL data source, that build, assert updates. No, thank you. Item SQL parameter source provider. So the idea is we've got we've got data, and we're going to create a prepared statement, and looking at do I ever use the test data plugin for IntelliJ? I'm not sure what that is. No. I wonder how hard it would be to create the templates for that by introspecting a partly filled database and looking at my JPA entities. It's 2023, and so far this year I've managed to not use JPA. Now, I can't commit to that, right? We all. It's so important to have New Year's resolutions, and one of mine is just avoid JPA at all costs whenever possible. So I don't know what that would be like in this case. I don't know what the test data plugin is, but if it requires JPA, then I'm definitely not interested. Okay, let's see here. So item SQL source parameter, item SQL parameter source provider. And by the way, it's not that there's anything wrong with JPA. It's just not a great way to write data to the database for my use cases. Okay, it's fine. I'm sure there's a reason to use it. I just haven't found it yet. Okay, so new item SQL. So okay, I guess I just need to try this out, huh? So new item. Okay. New SQL parameter source. I think that might be more than I need to do actually. So let's see. Column mapped. Can we do that by the item prepared statement setter? That looks more reasonable. Okay, so I've got a prepared statement and I've got a CSV item. So the CSV row. So I'm going to say insert into. So for now, why do I avoid JPA? It's just because it doesn't use it. There's no use case that I have where it provides any benefit. And for the things I'm trying to express, it's too verbose. If I had an application with hundreds of tables, then yeah, sure, I would probably reach for something like JPA. But you know, I try and do microservices. My microservices are small, and because they're small, they're self-contained. The data model is not going to have thousands of different relationships, and so I don't gain anything by adding that extra infrastructure. Not to mention, whenever I can use a Java record like this one, I want to use a Java record. And so Spring Data has what, like a dozen different modules. The only one that doesn't support records is JPA, because JPA itself fundamentally doesn't support records. And so I can look at my Spring Data portfolio of projects. Every single one of them does what I want to do, which is let me map data cleanly, nicely, using as small and efficient a construct as possible, and then not worry about it later. Okay, so insert into this thing. The video game sales. Okay, let's describe that. So we need to insert into this, like that. Okay. Good. Good. Okay. So insert into video game sales values. And then I need to do the same thing again. Copy and paste that down here. Paste this. Okay. Good. Good. Okay, so there we go. I've got that. Oh, thank God. Okay, if it's as long as it doesn't require JPA, then I'm interested. I'm in. I mean, is this part of so the test data plugin? Okay, well, you know what? Digression here. All right, plugins, test data. Nope. No question. No colon. What's the data plugin? Marketplace. Test data. Ooh, this one? Huh. Oh, you're saying it like generates, so it can be used to generate custom data? That's cool. You know what else is really good? Thank you, Morteza. Yeah, you know what else is really good? ChatGPT. Believe it or not, I I didn't know this was a thing, but you can go and say generate data with the following fields, from the following domain over the following years or whatever. It's silly, but test data looks like it could be a lot less work. So I'll check that plugin out. I appreciate it. Good. Good. What am I doing? I am updating these lines to have that. Thanks to Ahmed's great suggestion there. Okay. So now, insert into video game sales. Now, this is not an upsert. I need to do an upsert later. But for now, let's just get it in the database correctly. I don't care if it adds duplicate records. I'll delete everything and then work on the upsert next. Okay, so for now, insert into video game sales these fields with these column names and this part right here. Let's just copy and paste all that. Go down here. Okay, PS dot set string name. So it's 0, and then it's CSV, and it's item dot name. Okay. Can I write this code? I don't want to write this code myself. Let's do this the old-fashioned way. Some more strings. Good. Okay. Okay. Oh my goodness. Come on. Okay. So it'll be PS dot set foo set string this that item dot, and that looks basically sane to me. What about you? Okay, goodbye. Okay, so now, good, EU, JP, other, global. Okay. Need to remove the sales, yeah. Item rank, so this is a int, set string name, set platform. Oh, right. Okay, so it takes an int. It is tedious, but okay. And set int, set int, set float, set float. Okay. That looks sane. That's about right. And then do I need to execute? I never remember. Do I do ps.execute? Good. Okay, friends, that looks like it might do something. Who knows? It might just be the worst thing I've ever done. I don't know. We'll just find out. Oh? Did I do the wrong? Did I forget to plug it in again? Yeah, I forgot to plug it in, didn't I? You can see that's going to be a problem with me today. Not enough coffee. Plug this in. Pretty. Okay. to create SQL item, SQL parameter source provider. Okay, so I need to adapt the SQL parameters now, which is new item SQL source provider. Oh, this part. 0 and 2 instead of the names, yeah. So this part though, map SQL parameter source, bean property SQL parameter, abstract, map SQL parameter source. I guess, what's that? New map SQL parameter source, and then it's a map of keys and volume and values. That seems easy enough, right? Like, oh, doesn't it? It feels like I don't need the other one though, the prepared statement center if I do this. So I guess let's just figure it out. So again, with this goofy code formatting. Okay, and then pick this, Command C. Okay. And then we want, oops. Go up here. Okay, that looks basically okay. What's the issue now? Oh, this is so annoying. So I need to do I can't. There's not enough. There's not enough functionality for a map with that many rows. So var map equals new hash map string object map dot put all map dot of, and it's like 8 records at a time, right? So okay, go in there, and then map dot put all map of, and then it'll be okay. So the fields are going to conflict, right? Now, so I need the name of the columns to change. So it's sales, other sales. Yeah. So does that work? I mean, I don't know. This should be, it feels like I'm doing something wrong. Or not. Maybe I did too much, but either way, it seems to be working. Okay. So let's see if that actually did work, though. Only one way to find out, right? So select all from video game sales. Okay, well, at this point, friends, it's time to bring in the big guns. Postgres. Gonna connect to it. Username is Postgres. Postgres. Update the driver. Version, blah, blah, blah. Hit apply, hit OK. Select all from video game sales. Okay, there we are. And I expect this to have all the schema. There you go. Data object, public tables. We don't need nope anymore. Delete that. Okay. Okay, so when I run this query, does it look like it's doing the right thing? We got rank, we got the name of the game, the platform, the year, the genre, the publisher, the North American sales. Is that right? So what is this, in like millions? It can't be that they sold 41 games. Oh, table Noop will be recreated. I think I deleted it. Okay, yeah, let's assume it's millions, right? So, and I'm not sure if that's units or dollars. Like, I don't know if it's, is it units, 41 million units sold? So, okay, I have it in the script. I don't have it in the script, do I? Create table, okay. Well, whatever, we'll delete that table when we get to it. JP sales, other sales. I mean, it's coming in. I don't know if it's correct. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first row of the data to make sure I didn't screw up the parsing. Seeded data, less VD sales. So it says, well, first of all, the first row is Wii. So Wii Sports 2006. Platform is Wii. Publisher is Nintendo. North American sales is 41.49. Where did he get all these extra numbers, though? The CSV just says 41.49. Where did Postgres like make up the rest of this for me? Who did that? I don't trust that at all. That's not great. Okay, 29.02. What is this? Why do I have all this extra data? How bizarre. JP sales is 3 point. Wait, it's harder to. Global sales is 82. Let's work from the right. So global sales is 82. And then 8.46 is other sales. Okay. 3 point is JP sales. 29 is EU sales. And 41 is North American sales. Hey, it's working. Okay, good. Yeah, float precision, exactly. IEEE spec. Okay, well, it is in there. We've got the data. Now, yeah, floating point precision shenanigans. Exactly. It's shady as it can be. Numbers, can't trust them. I wonder if I had just described it all as a double, would that have made a difference? Let's see. Precise doubles Postgres. The way to do like precision, because really, exact storage and calculation, such as for monetary amounts, use numeric type. What is that? Can I still do math with numerics and stuff? Where do I, wait, so where does this parameter go? Oh, you think it's at the Java level? Like it's being read incorrectly? I mean, that's possible. Right. Okay, let's try it out. Let's just print it out. So system out item.global. What? How bizarre. Where's my data? Step 1 executed. CSV to DB. Did I miss something? Is this not even being used anymore? Yeah, that's not even being used. Okay, wait, let's just go here. Truncate video game sales. Okay. Yeah, okay, so this whole business that I did earlier was completely useless. I don't need it. So it's just this mapping of SQL parameters to values. Okay, so now for that, we need to just print out the results. So item.global. It looks precise enough in the Java code. So it doesn't look like it's extrapolating or interpolating extra data that doesn't exist. Yeah, so I think it's on the Postgres side, which makes me wonder if I set this to be numeric. I'm just kind of curious to see what that does. Or what is that other parameter that we just learned about? Extra float digits. How do you use this? Is it like when you create the column? How to use extra float digits. Just want an example, please. Number 2, what does that give me? Does that give me the precision? Okay, let's try that. So number like that. Or 4, but it doesn't even recognize number. Is it numeric? Okay, I'm down. That looks good. So drop table, video game sales. Okay. Ooh. Well, now we lost data. What about? Okay. Not quite. Okay, so we do like float 8. I gotta like just update this script. Up table, video game sales. Let's just redo that each time. Okay. Hey. Nope. So 3, 2 is probably what I want, right? So numeric 4, 2. Oh, I love Postgres. I love it. So numeric 4, 2. Nope. What did I do that for? Numeric. Okay. Hey, good job, chat. Thank you. That's awesome. Okay, now we're cooking. So, good. That looks good. Looks fine and dandy. I wonder why there's such a large. Oh, is it wrapping? What is going on there? Oh, wow. Okay. So I think we need to trim the name and other strings. So the name for sure. That's the game. And then what about the platform and publisher? Okay, so any strings, I think we need to trim them. Genre, publisher. Decimal is the same, but can I specify the precision? Okay. Nope, it still didn't work. Why does it? Is there a really long game name? Oh, there is. This one. Well, even still, that's. Why is it so long? Okay. Should I just be using varchar? Is that the idea here? That's pretty long. So select string name from video game sales. Oops. Underscore. Just len. Wait. Use IntelliJ. Use the source. Where's my console? Database console. Navigation. SQL script. SQL generator request. I just want my data. Goody. Okay, so select len. No. String. No. Okay, when in doubt, Google it. String length of a column in Postgres. Oh, you're sure this time? Okay, length. Name from video game sales. Hey. Okay, good. Thanks. And L. Order by L. Okay. Ascending. Descending. Whoa. That's not that long ago. Okay, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I was just trying to figure out why that length is so long. But as long as it's trimmed and it's not being stored inefficiently, then I don't care. Moving on. So we have our data in the database at long last. So now what? Now we can actually start doing reporting. And here we start running into a, because we got the data in the database. That was the hard part, right? Just getting that data in a place where we can use it. But things are starting to get a little out of control, right? The configuration here, look at this. I'm going to reduce the size so you can kind of like see what's happening. I've got all these beans and all that stuff in one place. And you can see that each step is kind of its own production, isn't it? Right? It's its own little thing. and it has item readers, it has item writers. Those item writers and item readers might in turn have pointers to other things like data sources and so on. So what and this is just, we've only done one step. I mean, we have 2 steps with the tasklet, but the tasklet we could throw away. We don't really need that, right? That's not actually key to our job here. So my point is, things start to get really complicated really quick with Spring Batch jobs, right? Because if you have a decently sized job, can you all see that font? I need to make the font a little bit smaller for myself. Can you see it like that on your screens? I can see it, you know, when I look at it on YouTube. So, okay. YouTube, can I see myself? Okay. But anyway, the font looks fine over here in the preview. So let's just leave it there. Now, it's already become kind of a production, right? And all I've done is just read data in from a CSV file and write it to the database. Now, I've done so in a way that's far more scalable than what a naive database template use might have done. But nonetheless, it's become a kind of a thing. And so at this point, I already want to start reaching for ways to better organize my code. And here, we start to care about that configuration discussion that we had earlier about how beans get registered with the context and so on. And I showed that you can put beans in different configuration classes, right? So we're going to do that. We're going to have a configuration class per step, okay? So class CSV to DB step configuration, right? And this will just be a configuration class. I'm going to copy and paste. I don't care about this tasklet anymore, by the way. I'll get rid of that for now. And all the code associated with this will go into a separate class. So this tasklet, goodbye. And the tasklet itself, don't care. Start. And here, reformat the code. And the reason we do this is because right now I've got the methods named. I've got the beans named a certain thing, and it's injecting each bean by the name of the bean. And so I've got the type and the bean name aligned perfectly, right? But things get complicated as soon as you change one from the other, right? So CSV, if I inject CSV flat file item reader and I'm declaring a bean of type flat file item reader of type CSV row, that'll be okay. But you know, I don't want to trust that. I want to have very explicit sort of wiring of types here. And so what I'm going to do, and by the way, I'm not using this JDBC template, so I'll get rid of that for now. What I'm going to do is I want to inject the configuration class. So CSV to DB step configuration, config, right? And I'll inject the step itself, right? And the step requires collaborating objects, but now that it's all part of a standalone config class, those collaborating objects can be at the bean level, at the class level, at the configuration class level. So like that. Okay. Private final. And plus, you know, I tend to, so I want to like keep all of this stuff self-contained, right? So I want this to be required args, or, you know, constructor injection, basically. I don't have that, so I'll just do a constructor manually. So put this up there in the top of the class, and then create the constructor the hard way. There we go. So I'm going to inject those beans into my config class. Put that down here, and the CSV, and then I need to get the item reader for the resource. Okay, so the item reader for the resource. Let's see here. This is a bean I can inject in the constructor. So I'll do that. Private final data source. Add constructor arguments. Good. So this one, this one needs a resource. So how do we extricate that? Same as before. Create a constructor. Private final resource. And then this becomes a constructor argument. I'll say this dot resource equals resource. All right. So I'm injecting the resource into the constructor proper. Missed opportunity to use the multi-cursor. I thought I was doing that pretty well today. Okay, so now I can do explicit bean method invocations, right? By type. So I'm gonna, I'm invoking the bean method, but remember, Spring intercepts that call. So even if I call this method 10 times, the bean only gets created once, and the result is then memoized. It's cached. Spring caches the bean that's been created, and so subsequent invocations of the method only return the same original pointer by default, unless you're not using singleton scoped. Okay, so that's my config there. So now this, what's wrong with this? Oh, it's throwing an exception, as it should. Good. Same exact code, same behavior, everything works just fine. It's just that now I've got it extracted out to a separate class, which I can then collapse. And so now it's very clear. Okay, I've got a job. Something is going to kick the job off when I start the job. By the way, I can define a job. Like, let's say I want Spring Boot's default behavior of running the job when the application starts up, and I don't want to pass in the parameters myself. I can restore that behavior, and I can still customize the parameters, right, by creating a init parameter, right? So incrementer, new jobs parameter incrementer. So new run ID, is it? New run ID incrementer? There you go. So this will just automatically increment the ID. How do we read a complex JSON using Java? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to do that. There's JSON if you have a small enough file, but there's also a streaming way to do that. JSON item reader. You can use the JSON item reader, and that's a Spring Batch type, and that'll let you read JSON, but it does it in a streaming aware way. So if you have like 10 million rows and you want to process them as you're reading, then this will do the correct thing there, right? It'll read chunks. Let's see here, JSON object reader, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure behind the scenes, this is probably using JSON, but yeah, okay. Moving on. Yeah, there you go. That's an option too. Okay, so that's my first class. We should fix this code to use the upsert now, right? I think we should do that. Okay, so let's just. I think we made good progress today. Let's do the upsert. Let's see here. SQL, Postgres, SQL, upsert. I mean, I love upsert, but I always forget how to do it. So upsert, insert on blah, 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 values on conflict, on constraint, on conflict. So they on constraint name, then do update. So on conflict, on constraint, and then the name of the constraint. Want to do something. Okay, so let's think about this here. Insert into values. Okay, and then on conflict, on constraint, do update, and then we need to do several people are dropping Lombok. I like Lombok. It's just I don't need it as often. Although I wish I had it here because I could use required args constructor, which I use all the time. I love that, right? I joke about not using Lombok because records solve the data use case. But if you're using JPA, then use Lombok. There is no easier way to get that job done. So yeah, Lombok has its place. The required args constructor is super clutch. I love that. At SLF for J, I use that all the time. The logs. So lots of things you can do. So is there a new way to do a upsert in Postgres? I don't know. This is newish. This is like the last 10 years, right? Okay, so what is the column? What do we care about here? What are the we want the name, the platform, the year, and what's the name, the platform, the year, and the genre? I think are keys, right? So let's create a key. How to create a composite key Postgres SQL. Composite key. Okay, primary key. Create. Okay. Primary key is name, platform, year. Okay. Primary key is not needed, but I need a key. So can I just do unique? Like I need a constraint for all 4 fields, right? So unique composite key Postgres. Let's see here. Unique. Yeah, okay. That looks right. They also could be a primary key, but if nothing else, I just want them to be unique. Okay, so let's try that. So I wonder if this will still run. Okay, so didn't run. Oops. It's because my SQL is probably not valid. Yeah, it's not a valid SQL statement. Okay, that's easy enough to fix. So close all the tabs. On conflict, do update, and then yes, multi-select. Oops. Okay, so we'll say excluded. This equals excluded dot this. And this one got screwed up, but that's okay. Global sales. So on conflict, on constraint, do update rank equals this. Well, I mean the rank, yeah, we care about that. Name should be the same, right? That's the whole point. If it's we don't care about name. Platform, don't care about that. Year, that's not going to change. Genre, that is in the key, right? So that shouldn't change. Publisher, where do we put this for the schema? So name, platform, year, genre. Is that right? So everything else should be in there. Yeah, okay. Name, rank, and sales. Oh, wait, is rank in there? No, rank shouldn't be in there because that could be recalculated. Okay, on constraint. So we don't have the name of the constraint here. Let's see what the DDL for video game sales is. The name of the constraint is this. Okay, let's try this again. Alt enter on the text block. Okay. Where's my upsert? And inject language or reference. Ooh, yes. I really should. It's a great idea. Thank you. I really should do that more often. Okay. That was super useful, super clutch. Great idea. Thank you for that. Okay. Call get exception. Do update set? Do I have to do like do update in the set? Yeah, set. Okay, that's what I thought it was. Set. Okay. No obvious issues here. Hey, nice. Okay, good. So do we still have what is it, 16 something thousand? Yep. Oh, good. Okay, we've got our data in the database. We've got the ability to make sure. So if we run this again, it should just be the exact same amount. 16. Wait, what? The hell? Going from doing well to doing worse. Already complete or not restartable. Okay, what did I do? It's the job. Remember I said I have to have an incrementer, new run ID incrementer, new job parameters incrementer, parameters dot get local date, get parameter, get next. No, that doesn't right. New run ID parameter. New run ID incrementer. What's the issue here? I should, yeah, I should add the UUID. Increment new job parameters incrementer. Why is this so? Wait, I'm just gonna drop the schema because I think I've got a misconfigured thing here. Drop. Okay. Oh yeah, okay, whatever. I wish the if exists, does that work? And then get rid of this. Tree. It halted for a second. It looked like it did some work. So there we go. What about if I run it now? What about select count? Video game sales. Okay. Pick 2. Good. So yeah, there's something weird because I had the job created before with the custom parameters with the custom job launcher. Then I got rid of it and restored the default behavior, and it's weird. So the run ID incrementer should be enough. That's what I'm saying. Is usually if you do that correctly, it'll do the right thing. All right, my friends. I think we're in a good place for now. I think it's time for me to go get some lunch. This was fun. Who got something out of this? Who learned something new? We're going to keep going. We're going to keep exploring this Spring Batch goodness. We're going to create another step, obviously, to do some analysis. And then we're going to do another thing. Eventually, the goal is to get to remote job chunking and partitioning, right? So what I want to do is do something and then farm that work out to another node. Well, in our case, it'll just be another microservice running on my local machine. But you'll get the idea. We're going to have a batch job which orchestrates. It'll send a chunk of processing across a broker over RabbitMQ or something, and then have something else do the work. Right? And that's a built-in feature inside of Spring Batch. So it means you can do work in parallel. Stuff that's embarrassingly parallel, it'll do that. Hey, thank you so much for joining. Stay tuned. I'll stream some more. It'll be fun. Have a great weekend if I don't see you. I appreciate it. Goodbye.